Welcome back. My name is Jason and I am your Advanced Dungeon Master. On today's video, we will be talking about the much-loved Barbarian class. It was first introduced by Gary Gygax in Dragon Magazine number 63. Back at the dawn of time. It's very interesting and I think a pretty wild read to see what he had in mind for the class back then. It was later revised or revisited in the Unearthed Arcana book published in 1985. And the Barbarian also got an Oriental flavored remake in the Oriental Adventures book that same year. Barbarians were once again revisited in Dragon Magazine number 148 in August of 1989, as the author felt that the Unearthed Arcana version was too powerful and too vaguely defined. After a bit of time, the Barbarian was released as a kit or subclass in the Complete Fighter's Handbook in December of 89. The Barbarian even gets a treatment in the Complete Priest's Handbook in 1990. But all this leads us to this book. This is the definitive second edition version of the Barbarian and the book that I'll be reviewing today. So let's sit back, get angry, or not, and prepare to dive into the Complete Barbarian's Handbook.
Is this kids' entertainment?
Who's that guy?
Swing, swing.
Hey, there's a guy.
Oh,
That
that's
guy
good.
thinks.
Usually I can see him without my glasses. Swing, swing.
Why is he doing this? Oh my god! Oh my god!
Oh my god, it's bloody.
So let me guess. You were sitting there one day looking at your 5e Barbarian character sheet, and you thought to yourself, why is my character called a Barbarian? He lives in a mansion, wears super magical metal armor, and uses his powerful flaming metal axe that speaks to him in his mind while he is using his ring of flying in great wondrous aerial combat. Sure, your character gets all sorts of angry and blind ragey from time to time during fights, but it's only because when that monster starts lurching towards you to rip your face off, it reminds you of how your father has control of your trust fund. And it triggers you like nothing else. And when your friends look at you after the fight, and you're all covered in blood and entrails of your enemies, they don't know that secretly you wish this gore was your father's, because he took away your 100 gold piece per month allowance after you turned 16, and told you that you'd have to survive on just 50 gold per month like some kind of peasant. And then you began to wonder, what would it be like to play a real barbarian? And what does that even mean? Well, let's take a look at it right now. So what is a 2E barbarian? They're the men and women of the world who live in the wilderness, far away from modern societies. That's key. They are the people who live and die by the land. They are largely illiterate, but they have a robust spoken language accompanied by physical gestures. Their worship of their ancestors and the land and animals make them very protective of the wild, and their love of family and community means they distrust outsiders and are willing to use their rage, if they have it, to defend against those who come to their land to take it from them. Weapons are made from bone, wood, stone, or other natural materials. They might use animal pelts as currency, and most have never seen a castle, a sword, or a gold piece. The dictionary definition of barbarian is, in ancient times, a member of a community or tribe not belonging to one of the great civilizations, Greek, Roman, or Christian. Based on that, the 2E use of the term barbarian is quite fitting, if not culturally appropriate. The intent of the 2E barbarian was, from the very first paragraph of the book, to create a class that was one with the wilderness both in thought and body. They were not uncultured by any means. They were of a different culture than the rest of the world's society, but with the 5E barbarian, the rage ability is baked into the class. So in the end, the 5E barbarian is just a really unintelligent, angry person. And I feel that does a great disservice to what a barbarian is. In 2E, the rage ability, called wild fighting, is an extra non-weapon proficiency. It's a skill that some barbarians might learn, but they also might want to learn how to cook instead, or ride a horse, or cure leather. So what can a 2nd edition barbarian do? I'm not going to go into character creation at this time. I'll be doing that in a later video. But I do want to go over what abilities they receive and give some guidance on how to make and play a fun barbarian. Movement. Barbarians have a movement speed of 15. This replaces the human standard movement speed of 12. Normally, if you're lightly encumbered, your speed is reduced by 1/3, medium encumbrance by 1/2, and heavy encumbrance by 2/3. Since the barbarian's movement speed starts at 15, then their light encumbrance is 10, medium is 7, rounded down, and heavy encumbrance is 5. Severe encumbrance is 1. Then you add +3 to each of those encumbered movement rates, as barbarians are more comfortable carrying larger loads. So you can pack rat all you like. This is where the 5e barbarian fast movement ability was taken from, but it is far better because it's not affected by armor and anything else. Leaping and springing. Barbarian fighters are awesome when running and jumping. As they level up, they can leap and spring greater and greater distances. Need someone to leap across that chasm? Send the barbarian. At 1st level, for example, a barbarian can leap 3d6 plus 1 feet after a 20-foot run. At 20th level, they can leap 3d6 plus 16 feet for a max leap of a whopping 34 feet. This is better than the non-weapon proficiency skill that characters can get, where they can jump 2d6 plus the character level in feet with a 20-foot run. No more, no less. Although that's still impressive. I can't seem to find how far an unskilled person can jump. Perhaps 2d6 feet? What do you think? Back protection. This is an interesting ability. In AD&D 2e, your character has a facing, a specific direction in combat, unlike the 360 vision that characters have in 5e. A barbarian fighter has a percentage chance to detect an incoming attack from behind, and they even get a free counterattack if they detect it. This is how it works. Let's say Carl is being attacked from behind by Caroline, the elf fighter. At level 1, Carl has a 15% chance of detecting the backstab. If Carl detects the attack from behind, he avoids that attack. He then gets to counterattack. At first blush, this seems like an overly powerful ability, but considering the penalties the barbarian has, it's probably okay. This ability is pretty cool, and Carl gets to be super awesome from time to time, but it's not going to break the game. Climbing. Barbarian fighters get the climbing skill. It functions just like the thief skill. Carl doesn't get any points to put into his climbing skill like thieves do each level. Don't forget to make adjustments to the climbing skill due to race, attribute modifiers, and armor worn. Magic. Shamans have access to a number of spheres and cannot, as a rule, turn undead. Though barbarian warriors do fear the magic of their shamans, they respect it as well. Barbarians in 2e have a special ability called Homeland Terrain. This is similar to the 5e Ranger ability Favored Terrain, but it is much broader in scope. At first level, you choose a terrain type that represents where you have lived all your life. You can choose from desert, Arctic, jungle, forest, mountains, hills, plains, swamps, or any other custom that is kind of similarly broad. Once chosen, you can't change it, nor do you get another terrain like the 5e Ranger does when they level up. Once chosen, the barbarian gets a slew of homeland advantages while in their terrain. They are as follows. They gain the use of the non-weapon proficiencies of survival, hiding, tracking, and animal lore for that homeland terrain. So while they're in their homeland terrain, they get to all of those skills for free. Once they leave that terrain, these skills are lost. But to clarify this a bit, if you choose forest as your homeland terrain, and you leave your homeland, travel across 6 deserts, then enter a new forest, you get those homeland terrain skills again. Barbarians are also super quiet while in their Homeland Terrain, and opponents suffer a -2 penalty to their surprise checks if you are alone or with other races, elves, and halflings that are similarly quiet. Fun. Intelligence and charisma limits. Barbarians know little about the outside world, or the outworld as they call it. DMs may wish to simulate this by imposing a penalty of -2 to -6 to all intelligence and charisma tests. Barbarians have a limited understanding of people outside their domain, so trying to get a better deal from the shopkeeper should impose a -6 to their barter check, for example, as barbarians don't use money in the traditional way and might find themselves waving their axe around and doing some kind of very cultural posturing that appears threatening to the shopkeeper. This is a tricky penalty imposed, as players may not like that they keep getting penalized for their intelligence or charisma tests all the time. But just let them know that this is going to happen when they choose to be a barbarian. A very horrible but intense drawback of being a barbarian is the way they deal with magic. They hate it and fear it. The arcane is so foreign to them that its very presence can drive them away in fear or send them into a wizard-killing rage. Even if a PC wizard has saved the life of a barbarian, the barbarian will find it difficult to become a friend or trust that wizard. If they see a wizard do some kind of grand magic, like a teleport spell, they might suddenly jump into a cleansing ritual to get the taint of that dark magic off of them. An NPC wizard who is flashy with their magic or openly hostile might earn the wrath of the barbarian. Barbarians often target spellcasters above all other enemies. Just be careful. Magical items. This is a big problem for 2E players. Barbarians fear and hate magic, and magical items are no different. Barbarians can use magical items, but with very specific limitations. Magical items that are made of natural materials, such as wood, stone, or animal products are okay. Bones. These items should approximate the effects of low-level clerical spells, such as a Cure Light Wounds, as low-level priest spells are magical effects that the barbarians respect and understand. They might also be able to use magical items that give them abilities such as swimming, because it gives them a power that is not too flashy and is related to nature that the barbarian understands. Barbarians tend to avoid magical weapons and armor unless they can be convinced by their party or divine intervention. The barbarian also avoids metal items. Yeah, no steel great axes for your barbarian. Or items that are inventions of the outside world, like a deck of illusions or a broom of flying. For the most part, potions and oils are okay for a barbarian to use. And then we come to the crux of it. If a barbarian comes across a magical item, he has a few options. He can ignore it and avoid it, let a friend pick it up. He can pass it along to a friend, but only if it is a magic item that he's comfortable with. If it's a wand of magic missiles, then he'll likely not pass it along, and in fact may destroy it. Yep, a barbarian finds a magic item that offends him, and many will, and if he does, he will be inclined to destroy it, or if that's not possible, make it inaccessible. Nothing's going to suck more than watching your barbarian friend throw that awesome-looking flaming +3 longsword over the side of the boat into the very deep ocean. So as you can see, this is a very role-playing centric penalty for playing a barbarian. And this is perhaps a reason you might need to make changes to the barbarian. Otherwise, players not playing a barbarian may really hate the barbarian and his or her player. Imagine you, the wizard, are probably holding up your wand of magic missiles after using it to kill a bad guy, when suddenly the barbarian freaks out on you, snatches the wand out of your hand, then snaps it in half, throws it on the ground, stomps on it, and just destroys it.
God damn it, Carl! Not again!
Yeah, that'd suck. This is how I'd handle this penalty. Barbarians should be suspicious of magic and hate magic items. I'm cool with that. I wouldn't change that. But taking away other players' magic items sucks and might break your gaming group. Instead, a barbarian should be allowed to get rid of or destroy any magic items that they find or own. Let the other players get their own magic items and let them watch in horror as their barbarian friend throws that +5 Vorpal sword into the volcano. He found it, it's his, so he gets to destroy it and gets the bonus XP for it, even if you're not using class-specific bonus XP. Throwing that +5 Vorpal blade into the fire should damn well earn you that bonus experience points because it hurts so much to do it. In the end, barbarians will suffer because it will be hard for them to find magic items that they keep and use. There could be fights that require magic items to even hurt an enemy, and that could leave the barbarian out of it. So with that in mind, I'd suggest allowing barbarians to use magic items, but only if these magic items are within the restrictions that barbarians have for non-magical items or weapons. For example, if that +5 Vorpal axe was made of wood and bone, they could use it, or if that +2 ring of protection was made of wood or stone, for example, sure, I think that'd be fine too. So wow, that was a lot of information to go over. To finish up, there's a ton of very cool information in this book about playing a barbarian. Playing a barbarian in 2E is a lot more like playing Conan the Barbarian than the privileged guy that gets angry because of how society or his parents treated him. But in the end, you and you alone play your barbarian. And you play your barbarian how you want to play him. It's all about the fun times, right, Carl? Right. Now grab your D10 and roll for initiative.